Hey everyone, this is Charting Man Dan of the Chart Guys, sitting in with Chart Guys member Devin here. And Devin's been with us for a few years on and off, and mostly in the cryptocurrency space recently. But in this conversation, we're going to be talking a lot about being aggressive as a trader, because a lot of people get into trading and they want to level up and make gains quickly. And certainly it takes a lot of psychological control to be able to do that, and a certain kind of mindset. And Devin's journey, which he's about to tell us about, reminds me a lot of my journey back in 2017, 2018 in the crypto space when I was extremely aggressive, and I have since shifted to conservative. So it's a much different mindset to be in, and we'll talk about what the differences of those are. Thanks for joining us, Devin.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks, Dan.
So why don't you walk us through a little overview as far as just your trading journey? When did you start? How long were you stumbling along? When did things start clicking and all that?
Yeah, it's been a long journey. But I started in crypto 2017 on the run up. I think I recall buying Bitcoin at some China fund dip. I got lucky buying it like 4,000, and then thereafter I woke up at 150% gains, and it's just an incredible market, and I'm riding the euphoria, and I got used to a bull market. That was my initial experience, and I wouldn't say trading, but investing. And I saw some awesome gains for my age. I think I was 19 at the time, and we hit 19,000, and I was bragging to my dad, who's a CPA, and I told him, it's a new paradigm, get with it, and he told me to sell. I didn't, and shortly thereafter, we all know what happened. So I think the transition from seeing crypto kind of fall off from 20,000 to 6,000 and bounce around, and seeing my gains wash out, that really gave me a desire to read more into the market, see why certain people are making money and taking profits when they are. And then that's when I started to check out Chart Guys, and I got a better idea of how the market works, the cycles of euphoria and fear, and that was a huge transition. But it wasn't until a while thereafter until I really got grips on trading and the psychological aspect, which I'm really excited to talk to you about.
So essentially, you lived through the euphoria, you experienced the giving it back that everybody has to if they're going to learn how to trade, because otherwise you're a genius and you just get it off the bat, which isn't how it works. So you get the losses, you get the painful lesson, you realize what was possible had I sold here, had I bought here, could have been so much better. So then as it was puttering around and the cryptocurrency space, died off a bit, that is when you started to actively attempt trading, 2018, 2019 or so?
Yep, unfortunately, I really got into trading when the bear market ensued, and I think it was 2018-19. Prior to the initial run from 3,500 to was it 14,000 or something like that. So I got chopped up a lot. My biggest mistake was utilizing margin and getting really wrapped up in trying to get quick gains off the bat. What I learned a while after, I didn't really start succeeding until I, first of all, traded in a market environment that suited the style of oversold bounces, was that I couldn't use margin in my strategy. I'd scale in, I'd scale out, and there's too much risk and percentage moves in the crypto atmosphere to be utilizing margin. So that was my mistake. And when I shifted that mentality to being okay at the beginning for a slow growth, with trading spot and no margin, that really enabled me to step up my game and take on more risk without the possibility of liquidation.
So you learned a whole bunch of lessons, and this time around with this market cycle, you were much more prepared to capitalize on the opportunity after the first opportunity slipped through your fingers. So why don't you walk us through a bit of how you have capitalized, obviously the big time run up on Bitcoin, but since then we've had a lot of volatility. We dropped down to 30,000, back up to 50, and how your trading style, are you focusing more on altcoins and the runners, or what has worked for you this time around?
Yeah. I think my style is very similar to yours. where as you talk about on the, parabolic run up, we'll catch some bounces, some 5 minute oversold bounces and whatnot, but really it's waiting for that fear to ensue, that there will be dip buying at some point and catching those hourly, 4 hour, daily oversolds when things are more extreme. That's when my edge kicks in, just like you, because I have a hard time, just from a risk standpoint, going heavy in like these small dips, like 5 minute oversolds on the run up, because I'm thinking, well, what if this is it? So I really like getting aggressive when things get really toppled to the downside. So that said, in this last run, I missed out on a lot of the gains on the way up, but I knew that when things got not parabolic to the downside, but I guess cascading to the downside, I'd be able to take advantage of that volatility, and I did. Yeah. So utilizing the same kind of scaling strategies that you use. However, I will say with my risk tolerance, I've had multiple times where I've been all in my account, and I'm okay with that, because what happened is throughout the last year, I built up such a kind of a buffer zone in my account that I'm willing to take those equity curves. As long as I'm maintaining like higher lows on the equity curve, then I'm okay with taking that risk. And some points I did have to take losses. I took 5-10% account losses, but I was okay with that.
Yeah, and that's where the psychology comes into play. And in terms of shorting versus long, what percentage would you say your long versus short playing bounces?
Probably like 80% long, 20% short.
Yeah, and in terms of gains over the last year, percentage wise, what roughly are we talking?
About 17,000%.
17,000%. Jesus. Well, congrats on that. I didn't know the number was that high. So yeah, for me it was more like 3.5 to 4.5 thousand in 2017.
So that'll beat the SPY.
Yeah, right.
6% yearly return.
So for me, psychologically, what really was an eye opener, and I was all in often as well, same as you, in terms of again waiting for that fear and the longer term time frames. I'd play the 5 minute oversold with a smaller amount, but right. When it's, as I say, when I match the aggressiveness of the bears. When the bears are getting real aggressive, that's when I'm getting real aggressive. And so for me, it was the same thing, but psychologically, my goal going into crypto in 2017 in May was I want to make 100%. And next thing you know, I'm up 1,000% in a couple of months. And so for me, it was I can lose 20% of my account from here and have a big mess up, and I'm still multiple times over what my initial goal was. And for me, that was really my security blanket of saying, worst case scenario, I screw up and lose a big trade, and that's my stop signal, stop this aggressiveness, and you're still coming out way out ahead. So as you said, the buffer zone, I call it the cushion, but just having that ability to say, oh, I don't care if I take a big loss because I'm going to keep going with my big account all in. Yep. And as long as it keeps working, and if we have our discipline down and if it's the right market environment, then that can keep going for a long time. So I
totally agree.
My next question for you is in terms of, future game plans. So it's been a great bull market. We're now in a bit of a tightening range in terms of longer term time frames. So are you looking to dial it back a little bit? Are you staying pedal to the metal? What are your future plans as far as sticking to only crypto? Are you going to go to stocks? And one more question was, are you planning on shifting towards conservative, or are you going to stay aggressive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot. But I think to address, I'll start with that. Am I sticking with conservative or not? Or with aggressive or not? I think as crypto is slowing down in the tightening range now, alts are exploding, but Bitcoin is not as tradable as it used to be. I have slowed down. When I see opportunity in alts, I'm still going to take it, but not with the same aggressiveness that I did back in a couple months ago when Bitcoin had its giant run with ETH. So I think I am slowing it down, but only in a matter to match the market aggressiveness, like you talked about. When bulls are running really hard, all-time highs, that's when I'm going to be just balls to the walls and ready for aggressiveness. But right now, I am dialing it back a bit. Um, and I do have a desire to move to stocks, but currently I'm in a bit of a conundrum with an exchange in crypto. So that's definitely a desire.
Yeah. So another question I had was, I forget the question off the top of my head, but one other thing I want to talk about psychologically. So psychologically, big time gains. How do you, number one, go about living life and staying grounded as far as, I can remember having scenarios where in a day I would make an amount of money that, used to be a goal to make in a year. And that for me it took a lot of psychology to be able to digest that and not, have it impact my life. And for me, it was a goal to have, whether I make a significant amount or lose a significant amount, the people in my life around me outside of trading can't tell at all what I did that day. And so I'm wondering if you had any hurdles in your life or, if you had any issues with that.
Yeah, I think trading can be lonely in that sense, that we get isolated with a financial standpoint that other people can't relate with, or that we definitely don't want to display to them, because I have friends and family that are not in a place of financial current success. That said, they are far beyond where I am in other parts in life. But I wouldn't want to display to them the kind of figures and numbers that I'm coming across, just out of respect and because I love them. But that said, it is difficult to kind of keep that grounds with life, because we're making, with a click of a button, kind of an obscene amount sometimes. And it's important to remain grounded and be down to earth, I think.
One thing that I found that helped with it is just forgetting, if you're viewing it in a mindset of, I just made a new car's worth in 3 hours versus I just made 30,000 points. Like that was a big distinguisher for me, where it wasn't money and it wasn't real. As long as it's on the exchange, it's not real. If it's in my bank account, then it becomes real. But if I'm trading with it on the exchange and I have the possibility of losing 20% on a trade that goes real wrong, then it's not real. So for me, I think
that's a great point.
Yeah,
that we have the possibility of losing that as well. So it's important not to get too ahead of ourselves, because sure, we might have made 5% on this trade, but it's possible in the next trade to lose 20%. And then, it's unlikely that we're going out there telling people about, well, I lost now, a down payment on a house. Where we take risk, and sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. And I think it's important to not get too ahead of ourselves in life with buying things. Something that I tell my friends is, when they start to accumulate some wealth, to be kind of really sure that they're not matching their lifestyle with the accumulation of where they're going with wealth. Because the second that things turn around, if you have debt, if you have lots of loans out, it's important to be able to have a limited lifestyle to fall back on.
Absolutely. That was a point that I wanted to bring up. So for me, it was not changing my lifestyle at all. I think I went out to eat more is how I changed. Yeah, that changed for me. But other than that, I got to a point where I was still driving my $8,000 used Subaru for 10 months after I was making enough to cover that car on a daily basis, day in and day out. And I think that has a lot to do with, again, it wasn't real. That money was not real, and it wasn't real for me to be spending until I switched to conservative. And for me, switching to conservative was moving money off of the exchanges, putting some and diversifying, putting some into real estate, putting some into the stock market to try and continue those gains. And so for me, let's now transition into talking about the actual mechanics of trading, our style of conservative versus aggressive. So, right now, you're still more aggressive than I am. And we're in a place where the difference, whenever I'm trying to describe it, would essentially be, in a place where you're putting in half of your account, scaling in to an hourly oversold bounce. I personally will only have 25% of my account in. So I'm using less capital, and that is what I view as conservative. And we can have the same game plan and the same targets, but if we're using different amount of capital, that's a very distinct distinction in terms of the risk and reward that we're taking on for that individual trade. So you mentioned, some of your scaling in when you're all in and not having a stop loss in place. And, I teach people stop loss on every single trade, but if you're trying to be, aggressive and you're trying to level up accounts, you have to do some things that, again, expose you to more risk and the possibility of a big red trade for the potential of those big gains. And I was wondering if, you think, well, are you gonna continue that, scaling in aspect in this current market with a lack of stops, or are you gonna eventually hit a point where, okay, from here on out, I'm putting a stop loss on every trade as long as, Bitcoin's within a tightening range or whatever criteria you have?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'd love to talk about that more. I think the point at which I'm going to shift that will be when I can take my money out to my bank and stocks and make it real, like you talked about. Because for now, it is like a video game, and I'm leveling up, and at some point, I'm going to lose my lives, and it will change at that point. And something I was talking about with a couple of good members in TCG are about a few of the trades that I was in the past few months, and I didn't have a stop in, and it got a little bit out of hand, and I did take the loss on a couple of those trades, and at the time it was like 5-10% account losers. And what happened is I was scaling in, I was heavy, and usually it would have worked out, but it didn't at that moment. And when I psychologically had that moment of I was looking at my account P&L and my equity curve, and what's important for me is keeping the higher lows on the equity curve, and I was really getting close to my last higher low on the equity curve, and I said I'm going to cut it, and I did, and it was like a 5% account loser, and I took it, but within the next couple of weeks I started trading again. I got my mental fortitude back in place and was able to make new highs. And I think it's important to be willing to cut a loser if it isn't within your own risk tolerance. And that for me isn't utilizing a stop loss, but that is kind of a personal assessment on a trade. And if I don't feel that it's going well, then I will take the loss.
So yeah, it was essentially a manual stop loss based on account size. So in terms of the emotional and psychological aspect, for me, when I was in all-in mode as far as aggressiveness, I had no girlfriend. I was living in a shed. I can remember, pulling into a dump would be happening, and I'd pull into the driveway and I'd park, and I would sprint into the backyard, into my shed. My life was based around trading. I would wake up every few hours. So have you been dedicating your entire life to trading, or how have you been maintaining that balance?
Yeah, not really, to be honest. I sleep 8 hours a night. I don't normally trade at night, like in the middle of the night at least. I have Trader Pro alerts with TheChartGuys, which helps a lot because I'm not constantly at my desk, and I'll get alerts, and I'll set alerts on TradingView, and that will help me to be a little bit more efficient throughout the day and not constantly be looking at the charts. And something that helped me a lot in my journey in the past year is having like set game plans in trading. So I'll be like, okay, this name has run up in a parabolic manner, like 300%, and I know it's likely that it's going to collapse at some point. And I'm just gonna set some horizontal lines at like minus 20% and then minus 40%. And I'll set alerts, and as it gets close, I'll sprint to the computer like you mentioned and set some buys, and then game on. But I'd say on average, since I have been escalating my relationship with my now fiance, and things are changing, and like the amount of time that I have to yield to trading, it's different. And And I think that would contribute to dialing back to be a little bit less aggressive. And maybe now talking with you about this, it is giving me desire to dial things back because my relationship is getting real and I have things on the horizon in life and I want to lock some of these games in. So
one more question for you. When you did suffer that 5% loss, when you have a big loss, what do you do to find that balance and that reset and that perspective on life?
Good question. Initially what helps is having like a really strong support group. And then the chart guys, I have a couple of friends that really, I think, give like a humoristic outlook on losses and trading and even gains. I think we shoot the shit back and forth on losses and how we're like, like you said earlier, I made a car's worth, I lost a car's worth. And that day it was like, lost a down payment in the house and it sucks. And then we joke it off. And I think that ability to bring humor into the equation and not be too serious about it, as we are making games like a video game. So when you take a loss, it's important to realize it in that same way. So that's important. Second, taking a step back and at least taking a day or two off is so important. And I know you talk about that a lot, and it really is true. So to only come back when you have a mental state of mind of, A, I don't have a desire to make up these losses, or like get back what I lost, and two, to only take on opportunity that is within like my normal risk tolerance, and I'm not going out there trying to revenge trade or do something different than I normally would.
Yeah, that's one of the most, as I say, the most powerful tools that a trader has is we decide when we play this game. If you're playing poker and you're in a poker tournament and you take a big loss and you start going on tilt, you can stand up from the table, but there is no, taking a day off. You can't do it. So it's so powerful to just be able to hard stop and have a complete mental reset before you get back to the game. And for me, it's a lot of just looking on the bright side, just so I don't get in a negative spiral. So if I take a big loss and I can look back and say, well, I'm still up this much on the year, or I've still, done this in the past month. And I can, like you said, with that higher low on your account, you can look at that and say, okay, well, if I just bounce back from here, we'll just keep the uptrend going and I'll head back towards that recent high.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to have other facets in life apart from trading, and that, if you like adventure or you have somebody you really love, like my fiance now, it's weird saying that, I feel like a douchebag. It's like fiance. I love spending time with her. And to me, it's like last year when we started our relationship, I don't want to say nothing, but very little, like living paycheck to paycheck while attempting to trade. And we still had a great time. And looking back and thinking about how money is not the absolute equation to happiness. You take a loss, but so what? We live on.
Yeah. So. One thing I said recently that I like is the goal isn't to make as much money as possible. The goal is to make as much money as possible while living, a balanced life. And the example was, if I cut my friends and family out of my life and I devote every second of the day, I will be a better trader, without a doubt. I'm putting in more time and effort. I have zero distractions, but that's not the goal. And I would live a miserable life if I did that. So it's very important to find that balance and the things outside, like, what are we doing this for? And I think you have a good example of that with your new fiance. All right. Well, thanks for joining, Devin. I appreciate the insight, and we'll just further this discussion in the chat room as far as more specifics is, this is what I would do aggressive. This is what I would do if I was conservative, just to help people get that different kind of mindset. And I look forward to you coming into town. Devin's coming in a few weeks to the Trader House, and Chart Guys, Jungle Funk, Joey's already there. So we'll make some more content and do some trading, and we'll see you then.
I'm excited. Thanks, Dan.
All righty.